friends, and welcome back to Random Hearts. We're out in the garden today and I am pulling some of the last of my produce from the garden. It is mid-October, which is quite unusual for our Wyoming garden. We usually have a frost somewhere around the 15th of September, but we still have not frozen and I am still pulling tomatoes and peppers, which is amazing. So we're going to clear out the garden today because I do have frost in the forecast. And it is a possibility that I will have a frost tonight, but I am going to start cleaning out the garden beds. The biggest problem is mostly sun at this point. They're just not getting enough sunshine to actually grow. So I am going to begin taking out some of my plants, and even though they are robust and they're growing beautifully right now, I do need to get started with this project. So I'm going to speed up the footage here on a lot of this stuff, but I'll talk you through what I am doing. Now this bed in particular had 2 tomato plants. They were the sweetie tomatoes, and I did not have proper support on them, so they were pretty much sprawling everywhere. And in order for my husband to finish up this flagstone pathway, we did need to remove them. I also had 3 ace bell peppers in this bed, and those had done so well this season. I actually got 2 separate harvests off of them, and I am working on bush green beans right now. I've got some jade and some amethyst beans in this bed, and those were the ones that I planted in mid-July, right after the garlic came out of this bed. And I wasn't sure they would do well, but clearly with our extended growing season, they did fabulously. We got a lot of green beans this year, and I actually was contemplating how to freeze them because we were not able to keep up with them very well. I did end up giving some green beans away to some friends, and that is just fine. I'm okay with that. But I may eventually in the future learn how to freeze or can some of our produce. To harvest these green beans, I am just taking the entire plant out of the ground and then tipping it upside down, and magically the green beans reveal themselves. It's very easy to do this when you are clearing out the bed. But normally this will take me quite a long time to do on a normal harvesting day because you've got to search the plant pretty well. And I was taking every single green bean, even the smallest of beans. I have now moved on to the bed that had our cabbage in it and our onions. And look at this massive onion. This is a candy yellow onion, and it is huge. It is bigger than my hand, and I was hoping that it would flop over so that I could store it better, but unfortunately it never did. So all of these onions I'm pulling right now we will have to eat in the next couple of days because they do not have the best storage life when the neck on them is still very sturdy. So I actually had quite a few problems with onions this year, and that is probably because of some of them with seed. My Frontier onions were a few years old and they actually did not germinate or do well at all, and we ended up eating those kind of like green onions. I also had problems with my Walla Wallas bolting, and then these candy ones just did not flop over. But look at the size of this onion. I am so proud of myself. Looks great. It is vital this time of year to make sure that all of my equipment is clean and dry, and that is what I'm doing right here. I've got a trellis that was used to support the snap peas in the bed directly behind me, the one that doesn't have the hoops on it. And when I was taking those plants down, I noticed that there was some residue between the 2 panel sections. It looked like rust at first, but upon further inspection, I noticed that the little pieces were moving around. So they were definitely some kind of a bug, and we definitely had some issues on those plants, and I feel like it is spider mites. So I'm going to clean those thoroughly, let them dry, and while those are drying in the sun, I am going to continue pulling the rest of my harvest. I'll get all my onions over to some shade so that they can stay in the cool. And this is what we got today. It is a beautiful amount of peppers, jalapenos, I've got some tomatoes, some green beans, beet greens, and carrots, and of course those onions. Well, friends, we've been working out in the garden now for about 4 hours, and It probably doesn't seem like that based on the footage, and that is just because I don't film everything I'm doing. But I am going to sit down and have a late lunch. It's about 2:30 right now, and I am going to be having a garden fresh salad. You probably watched me pull some of this out of the garden this morning. I did pull some spinach out, and then I also pulled out my beets. The beets were not quite mature enough to save them, but I am definitely going to be eating the beet greens. So I'm going to make a salad, and I have beet greens, spinach, and of course a bazillion tomatoes because we have so many right now. And for those of you that don't know, we are already a month past our first frost date, and that's pretty unusual for us. But everything is still growing in the garden. We're just running into this problem, and you can see it is midday, and I already have shadows from the trees because we have hit the tree line already. The sun is going across the sky pretty level anymore, and it just doesn't get high enough to get past the trees or even some of our structures. So I am pulling the garden out. We have a chance for light frost tonight. I doubt it's going to happen, but I do want to be making sure that anything that I do have out in the garden is pulled that is ready. So I am basically pulling everything today. I also need to be getting our water lines taken care of and getting those blown down. All of our patio furniture needs to be tied down because we do have excessive wind here during the winter months, and that will take patio furniture for rides. But we are going to sit down, have some lunch, take a little bit of a break, and hopefully I can get back up from that break. I don't know about you, but once I sit down, sometimes it's difficult to get back into the swing of doing work. And don't you worry, I got right back to work. I spent about 20 minutes having lunch, enjoying the sunshine and a little bit of a breeze on my face. I rehydrated myself, made sure I used a bathroom, and then I got right back to work. And I am working in that first bed where I had those sweetie tomatoes. These are the ones that basically grew all over the ground. I had hundreds of tomatoes on here, and I do know that you can ripen tomatoes on the vine indoors, but at some point I just have to say enough is enough. And I salvaged a few, but I had to throw out a good majority of them. And although it pains me, I do think this is for the best. We are kind of getting to the point where we just can't keep up with the amount of tomatoes that were coming in. We've been having them pretty much at every single meal, and I will be diminishing the amount of tomatoes I'm growing next year because we just can't keep up. The sweetie tomatoes have been one of my favorite. I've been growing them for several years now, and I love their texture, their sweetness. They're perfectly sized for popping straight into your mouth, and we have loved them. Unfortunately, I used up all of my seed this year, and I have not been able to find that exact variety anywhere. I believe I got them from a big box store maybe years ago. But if you've got a favorite small snacking sized tomato that you like to grow, please let me know the variety name in the comments and I'll give it a try. Keep in mind that I have a 90 to 100 day growing season, and that does affect what I can grow here. So I am working on this same bed, but now I am getting it prepared for next spring. To do this, I start by taking out the drip line system. I just flop that out. I take all the staples out and pull that out of the bed. You can see the brown line kind of hanging to the right there. And then I add some kind of organic material. This year I am using a land and seed compost. I like this one really well because it's well broken down, and my soil does not break down much over the winter months. I just don't have enough heat to help break down any of those organic materials. I also do till or go through it with a fork because that helps to break up the soil a little, and it gets super compacted if I do not do that. I also get an opportunity to go through, take out any large pieces of debris and any kind of root systems and stuff that could cause me problems next spring. I am now reattaching the drip line, and I will make sure that everything is good to go for next spring, put all the hoops back on, and then give it a good water in. Next spring, when I am ready to go ahead and start planting again, All I'll need to do is stir it up one more time and maybe add some earthworm castings or another type of organic material. And that is pretty much all I need to do. In this raised bed, I decided I was going to trim up the tomato plants rather than take them out. I've got 4 tomato plants in here that I decided to keep. One of them is a grape style golden sweet tomato, and they are producing so much right now. Every single day I come out here, I've got at least a handful of them, and they're very tasty as well, and they're not quite as unruly as the sweeties were, so I can cover this bed. I have now moved on to the final bed that I'm going to work on for the day. You can see the shadows are getting pretty long, and it is getting very late in the afternoon, closer to evening, and I need to start some dinner and get ready for the next work day. So I am going to be quickly going through this bed. You can see I pulled the drip line out. That is on the right hand side there, and I made sure I had all the staples as best as I could. And I'm just going to put some more land and seed compost on this. Now, this was the bed that had my snap peas, my spinach, my radishes, and lettuce earlier on in the season. And I do not feel like this bed has a real need for a lot of compost in it. They are not heavy feeders, and none of those vegetables are. So I am just tilling in about 1/2 to 3/4 of a bag. I do have to be kind of conservative right now with how much compost I'm putting in the beds because I do not have access to any more this season. My local garden center has closed for the season, and so I cannot get more. Now, I could travel and get more, but that's not really something that I'm wanting to do. So I am going to be utilizing what I have and just kind of using it sparingly. I'm going to add the drip line right back to this bed, and then we will put the hoops back on, and I will water it in just like I did the other 2 beds, and that will be everything for this one. And we are closing in on what I am going to get done for the day. I do have a couple of other projects that I do not record on film, and that is just because of time constraints. So I hope that you've enjoyed this part, and we'll be back tomorrow to show you around the garden. Well, we are out in the backyard, and I have just gotten off work. The daylight is quickly fading, so we are going to have to take a super quick garden tour today. We did not freeze last night, so we are rocking quite a few blooms out here still. And of course, I have a lot of my annuals still in the ground. I have not pulled some of those yet. And I think my biggest problem yesterday, and this is probably a problem many people have, is that I just didn't have space to put any more of my plants. We have 1 bin that we can put our yard waste into, and that gets picked up every 2 weeks. And it is full right now. I have nowhere else to put anything, and I still have a lot of things that need to be pulled out of the yard. But we'll go around, we'll look at everything. I'll tell you what still needs to be done, what I got accomplished yesterday, and we'll just see how things are looking. Well, I wanted to take you on a garden tour, but it seems like my neighbor is playing their music. And of course that will be copyrighted, so I cannot record while I am out in my yard because I can hear the lyrics like plain as day. And he's not even a neighbor, that is right across the street. He's 2 houses down. And I've been waiting for about half an hour for him to shut his music off, or at least turn it down so that it can't be heard 3 houses up the street. But we'll see if I can even get this garden tour in. I do have to deal with this pretty frequently, so this is some of the reason why you don't get videos very often. We're going to start right here where we've got our trees and our shrubs underneath our aspen tree, and it is starting to change color. It's not really heavily into changing yet. This is probably one of the easiest areas to take care of because I really don't have to do anything. We put in that new bark mulch last year, and that has helped quite a lot with weed control. The only thing I probably could cut back in this bed is the Russian sage, and I choose to leave my Russian sage until the spring. That way I have a little bit of winter interest in the yard. You can see our princess plum has lost all of its leaves, and the dogwood up at the top, the variegated dogwood, is about to lose its. I have some cutback that needs to be done in these beds.
I've got mostly perennials in here, but I do have a few annuals. I'll just leave these and we'll see how they fare. I'll clean them up next spring. I will be cleaning up my lavender a little, cutting that down a little lower to the ground. And then up at the top here, I've already cut back some of my hostas, and pretty much everything else I think I'll leave. We'll deal with most of that in the spring. I've also started taking care of some of my daylilies. Those are really important for me to get out of the ground and cleaned up in the fall because they have so much foliage that just lays flat and kind of smothers things. Also, it's a great place for bugs to harbor, and I don't want bugs like slugs to have a nice cozy place for the winter. You can see a lot of the yard is still beautifully green. I've got some hydrangeas right here that are starting to take on some fall color. Got some beautiful blooms though. And then my campanula down here is just blooming like crazy. That's the best I think it's looked all year. Everything still is vibrant. Even the annuals like this lemon coral sedum, still looking fabulous. You can see those 9 barks back there have started to change color. I've got some beautiful colors. This isn't the best time of day to showcase this, but I've got a lot of oranges in this bed, a lot of lemony yellows, some reds from the tree. It just looks beautiful. As I pan around, well, there's my shadow. This bed right here was cleaned out a couple weeks ago. This is the first one I always clean out, and I take out all of my annuals and then trim down and get as close to the ground as I can with the perennials without cutting too much. I add a little bit of compost to their soil, a little bit of fertilizer to get everything through the winter, and of course we're still watering, so anything that needs water is still getting it. Over here in this bed, I've done a similar thing. This one has a little more perennial activity, so these are all perennials that you see still in this bed. I have taken all the annuals out, including what was in the wagon. Back here where I keep all of my herbs, you can see I'm down to 4 herb pots. And if I am really careful, I can keep some of these to overwinter a little. I might be able to put them in the garage or put them close up to the house and bring them in on cold nights. Some of them do very well in colder temperatures, especially rosemary. I could get that one to make it through most of the winter. Over here on this side, I've got my 2 grow bags. They have been disconnected from their water, and we are no longer watering them. I'm just waiting for them to dry out a little. They get very, very heavy when they're waterlogged. Also, like I mentioned, we are out of bin space, so we had nowhere to trash those yet. So I am just waiting to have room to put those in the garbage. Over here, I've got my beautiful pots of flowers. And this is the hardest thing, guys. When you've got to trash something like this, it just still looks amazing. But unfortunately, this is all going to go away in just a couple of days. Like I said, we are expected to freeze in just 3 days. It might be 77 degrees right now, but it will be down to 24 by Thursday. So beautiful. And it's just hard to get rid of those. Now this bed right here will be the next one that I deal with. I do need to take out all the marigolds, clean up all the Stella d'Oro daylilies in there. That's what I'm talking about. They can't be matted down like that. That just makes it way too hard for other plants come spring, and it's a great place for bugs to hang out. And I just don't want them in my yard. Everything looks great over here. Still lots and lots of color. And as I come down towards the fire pit here, you'll see the backside of these. These planters are just gorgeous, and I really am going to have a hard time throwing them away in a couple of days. On this side, we've got all of our zinnias and our chokecherry. It is still fully leafed out. And these are still looking glorious. I just took a bunch off today. I took them into work and filled a couple of vases in our break room. And they're just amazing, guys. They look beautiful. I am having a little bit of problems with, I believe it's spider mites. So I will need to be paying close attention to that, because I do think we've got an infestation. And boxwoods in particular are something they like, so I will be keeping an eye on those. But I did find some spider mite damage on my peas when I took the pea trellis down. So I want to be super careful that I'm not allowing those a safe haven. I did keep 4 of my tomatoes, and you can see I've got a lot of tomatoes still. And in the next couple of days, hopefully I will get some more ripened tomatoes off of those. You can see this bed back here I completely cleaned out yesterday. I actually turned the soil, added some compost, and reworked our water line in there. Same with this bed here. And the only thing that needs to be done on here, and on this bed in particular, is I need to add some straw for my strawberries. This bed was also reworked and new compost was added. That is compost right there that needs to go into the 2 remaining beds. And then this area right here will pretty much stay the way it is. The only thing that might happen is I might take out the asters that are in here. They are a perennial. And if I don't get them out before it freezes, I'll just leave them until spring. You can see our flagstone patio right here is looking pretty good, but we did not get any further on it. We laid some of the stones that we want to use, but we did not get them laid properly, so they're just lying there. This bed right here has about 1/4 of the carrots, about half of the carrots actually, still in it, and those are still growing, and we'll pull those as we need them. They will be a little bit hardy, and if I need to, I can cover them. As for these planters over here, these all need to go. This one is starting to dry out. You can see that it's not doing well. It may be too much water at this point. I've got a mum over here that's already done blooming, and these have just been amazing planters. Just very happy with the combination. This is an identical one to the one that is underneath the patio, and they did so well this year. But anyway, that is the yard. That was a quick tour of it, and I hope you have enjoyed that. Well, friends, I think this is where we're going to end this video today. I am quickly losing my daylight hours, so it is getting harder and harder to film out here. So that is kind of a challenge this time of year, especially with filming outdoors and having a full-time job during the daytime hours. So even though everything looks beautiful and I am feeling very blessed at how long we had of a growing season this year, we almost tacked on a full 60 days extra growing season. And that feels amazing. I don't even know if we've ever had this long of a growing season here where I live in Wyoming. And even though everything's still blooming, looks beautiful, I am ready for that change. And let me know in the comments down below if you ever start to feel that way. Like you need a change of pace. I love being outdoors and I love working with my plants and I love seeing these beautiful things. But I am ready for a change, and sometimes that does come with some sacrifices. So some of these beautiful things will end up in a dumpster or a bin, and unfortunately that's just how it has to be. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I know that I haven't shown everything that I do when I am preparing for the winter season, but I've given you kind of a glimpse. And if you have any other questions about how we deal with like our sprinkler systems, our drip irrigation, or our patio furniture, let me know in the comments and I will answer those questions for you. But we hope you've enjoyed this, and if you have, give it a thumbs up. If you have any other questions or comments, also leave those down below, and if you haven't already considered subscribing to the channel, please consider. We hope you have a lovely day wherever you are, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.